Get that first. Huh? You got that on that? Okay. Huh? Okay. That's okay. मैच बॉक्स वो माचिस जलाओ जल्दी है माचिस वही रखा सब कम कम So, welcome to all of you on Constitution Day. So, we have a distinguished panel. Our speaker today is Justice Madan Lokur, former judge of the Supreme Court of India. And then we have three discussants. Dr. Smita, Patil is held up due to traffic. She'll be just here. Surajkumar Thube, who's at Ashoka University, visiting professor of political science. He's joining us online. He's taken unwell. And Professor Aakash Singh Rathore, international fellow, ETHOS, Rome, and author of Becoming Babasaheb, The Life and Times of Bhimrao, Ramji, Ambedkar. He'll be joining from Tunis. He is actually in Tunisia. So he'll be joining from there later. So now I'll just take a minute. And, we are talking of the values of our Constitution. And Justice Madan Lokur will talk about it in greater detail. Now, I'll just say a few words about Justice Madan Lokur. Actually, he and I were together in school, the same batch, and also in college, in modern school, Barakamba, and then in St. Stephen's College. So I'm privileged to welcome Madan at this meeting and addressing the students. I'm remembering those days when we were together in school and college. Now, the Constitution for us represents the republican and democratic form of government, secularism, separation of powers, federalism, dignity of the individual, unity and integrity of the nation, social, economic, and political justice, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship, equality of status and opportunity, and above everything, fraternity. These values together make the Indian Constitution one of the most progressive and transformative constitutions in the world, aiming not just to govern, but to radically transform Indian society towards justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity. Now, it's still a work in progress. We've not achieved that, but it's still a work in progress. So, without further ado, I'll request Justice Lokur to address you. And before that, we always remember our artisans. Now, this comes from Salem in Tamil Nadu, and it represents the Ganga Jamuna tradition of India. This is, can you imagine in South, they call it Ganga Jamuna. This Angavastram is called that. It has these two colors, red and green. And it is called the Ganga Jamuna Tehzeeb, So it represents our pluralism. So I'll present this to Madan before he begins his. The Constitution of India, which I had. Most important thing. Good morning, everybody. And best wishes to all of you for commemorating the Constitution Day. I would just like to say a few words about the Constitution. It was debated and discussed by the Constituent Assembly, which was consisting of very eminent persons from all walks of life, men and women. There were unfortunately not too many women. If I remember correctly, there were about 12 women, but they were all very eminent women. They discussed the Constitution, debated it for more than 2 years. And at the end of it, on the 25th of November in 1949, they arrived at a consensus and gave us this document called the Constitution of India. And it was decided that the Constitution of India will come into force, will come into effect after 3 months. And that is why we have 26th of January, 3 months later after 26th of November, as our Republic Day. So this is really the broad background. There were as many as 2,000 amendments that were proposed to the Constitution of India. Debates and discussions had taken place. Each word was gone through. In some occasions, the words were changed. They thought that this word is not appropriate. Some other word should be used. And very vibrant debates, all carried out for the benefit of the country and for the benefit of the people. And it is the representatives of the Constituent Assembly that gave us this Constitution, and that is why it is said that we, the people, have given the Constitution to ourselves. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar, was a giant among all intellectuals at that time, and he was the chairperson of the drafting committee. He had the assistance of 6 other very eminent persons, but most of the work was done by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. And because it took such a long time, drafting, discussions, debates, studies, and so on, it had an impact on his health to some extent. But he went on.
and he decided that we have to give ourselves a good constitution. There is some debate that is going on in the recent past whether the credit of the Constitution of India should be given to Dr. B.R. Ambedkar or to Sir Benegal Rao, who was also a very eminent jurist. But I think that debate is, just for the sake of having a debate. There is no doubt that Dr. B.R. Ambedkar is the architect of our Constitution. This is the background of our Constitution. Now, what about the values of our Constitution? It is important to know that the Constitution represents an idea. We are a democratic republic. And the idea is that we, the people, that is why the first three words of our Constitution, which are there in the preamble, says, we, the people, we are giving to ourselves this Constitution. And the Constitution broadly, Mr. Suhas Borker had mentioned about separation of powers. Broadly, you have Parliament, and in the states, you have the state legislatures, Vidhan Sabha. You have the executive with the Prime Minister as the head of the government. The President, of course, is the head of the state, but the Prime Minister is the head of the government, and he has a cabinet which works with him for the benefit of the country. And you have the bureaucracy, officers from the IAS, IFS, Revenue Service, and so many other services. So that is the Parliament, the legislature, the executive, and the third is the judiciary. So you have the Supreme Court of India, which is here in Delhi. You have high courts in every state. You have a high court in Delhi, which is a union territory. Sometimes you have one high court for two states, like in Punjab and Haryana, the high court is in Chandigarh. In the northeast, in Guwahati, you have the high court for Assam, Mizoram, and Nagaland. So you have the judiciary, all over the country. The legislature will pass laws. That is the principal idea of the legislature. The executive will implement the laws. They will enforce the laws. So you have the police for the enforcement of the laws. And you have the judiciary, which will interpret the laws. So when you get a judgment from the Supreme Court or when you get a judgment from the High Court, they tell you what exactly does the particular law that is under consideration, what does that law say? What is the interpretation of that law? Or if it is a matter pertaining to the Constitution of India, how do you interpret the Constitution of India? Just 10-15 days ago, the Supreme Court gave a decision and an advice to the President of India on her asking for advice about the role of the governor. Now, the governor is a body or an institution or an individual created under the Constitution. So how do you define, how do you explain, how do you understand the role of the governor? The President of India requested the Supreme Court for an advisory opinion, and the Supreme Court gave that advisory opinion that is being debated and discussed in various platforms about the interpretation of the role of the governor in terms of the Constitution. Now, of course, you have also different bodies under the Constitution. For financial issues, you have the Comptroller and Auditor General of India. For recruitment to civil services, you have the Union Public Service Commission. Some of you may eventually end up sitting for the examinations conducted by the UPSC, become officers of the Indian Administrative Service or the Indian Foreign Service. You have the Finance Commission. So you have a lot of other institutions, the Election Commission, also under the Constitution. So you have to look at the Constitution as a whole, consisting of several parts, but they are all come together in the Constitution of India. And that is where you have to look for the values of the Constitution. Now, the preamble to the Constitution, which you see in front of you, gives the what I believe is are the values of the Constitution. 4 words are extremely important. Apart from the first 3 words that we, the people, we are giving to ourselves this Constitution. It is not somebody else who's giving it to us. We are giving it to ourselves. 4 words which are very important are justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity. Now, what do the Constitution makers, those who debated and discussed the Constitution, what do they understand by justice? It is not, a judgment given in a court, but justice in all its forms. It could be social justice, where you have to look after the downtrodden, you have to look after the backward, maybe tribes, maybe different categories of people. Social, economic, persons who don't have wealth, who are poor, you have to look after them. That is also a part of justice. And you have to look after political justice. That is to say that you elect the right people, and politically everybody is equal. And India is among the first few countries in the world to have given adult suffrage, universal adult suffrage. Everybody from the day that India became independent, every adult, man or woman, has the right to vote. There were several countries where movements had taken place. Women demanded the right to vote, and after a long struggle, even in the United States, even in England, they were given the right to vote. But in India, the Constitution says that you will have political justice. So everybody has the right to vote. So when you turn 18 and you are eligible to vote, please vote, because your vote counts. That is one very important value. The second important value, which you will see over there, is that of liberty. Liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship. So I have the liberty. Liberty is not in the sense of being in jail. That is not what the preamble is talking about. They're talking about liberty of thought and expression. It's a free country. Ours is a democracy. So I am free to have whatever thoughts I want, express my views. I may have a view different from the government of India, but I have the freedom to express my view. I may have a political philosophy which is different from your political philosophy, but because you are in a majority, it doesn't mean that I cannot have a political philosophy. That is why in India, you have some completely diametrically opposite, in one sense, political philosophies in power. Now you have communist governments, right, in the states. We've had in Kerala, we've had in West Bengal. Now, these are perhaps the only democratically elected communist governments. That is freedom of thought, freedom of expression. That is political justice, where I can decide what belief that I want to have, what ideology that I want to have. Then there is religion. India has got 18 different religions. No other country has that. So we have persons from all faiths: Hindus, Muslims, Christians, Jews, Parsis, Zoroastrians, Jains, Sikhs. So Buddhists, we have people from all faiths. Now you can't say that I will not permit you to practice your religion. That would be wrong, because that is not permitted by the Constitution of India. And you will see over here that it says that ours is a secular democracy. where all faiths, all religions, all beliefs are accepted. Then you have equality, equality of status and opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity. That's all right. Equality of status and opportunity. So everybody must be given the opportunity to rise to the higher level, whether it's in terms of education, whether it is in terms of employment. Now, we've had a history because of caste, we've had a history of untouchability, scheduled castes who have been looked down upon for centuries. They have to also have an opportunity of equal opportunity of status. They also require equality. And so to bring that into to bring them into the fold, so to speak, and to give them the equality of opportunity, the Constitution says that they must also be given equality. And that is why in the Constitution we have reservation. To some extent, if you want to get a job with the government, there are reservations for scheduled castes, there are reservations for scheduled tribes, there are reservations for other backward classes. Why? That is because of equality. All of us have to be treated equally, whether we are men, whether we are women, whether we are children, whether we are boys, whether we are girls, whether we are physically disabled or we are not physically disabled. We have to be treated equally. So efforts are made by the government, efforts are made by the courts, efforts are made by parliament to ensure that even persons who are disabled, physically disabled, or persons who are mentally challenged are given an equal status in society, and they're not looked down upon. Oh, you're physically disabled, so you better sit somewhere else. That's not permitted at all. Untouchability, which was existing, completely prohibited by the Constitution. Bonded labor, prohibited by the Constitution, had been going on for years. That is equality. And finally, and I think most importantly, is fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity and integrity of the nation. Fraternity means that in Hindi you can say bhaichara, where everybody, once they are equal, it's like a brotherhood or a sisterhood, that we all belong to one nation. We are all one people. We are all working for the benefit of our country. And there must be this fraternity amongst us. You cannot say that, oh, you belong to a different religion or you belong to a different caste, so therefore you're not my friend or you're my enemy or whatever. That is not fraternity is about. Fraternity is giving dignity to the individual. You can't say that, oh, you are doing this kind of work, so you better stay away from me because I'm doing a very good job. I am a big officer somewhere. You are some lowly person, you are a peon or some such thing. So, you can't be my friend. That is not what fraternity is, where you have to treat everybody equal to you and to the others around you. They are all your friends, they're all your brothers, they're all your sisters, and that is how you have to deal with everybody. These are the basic values of our Constitution. I'll just say a few words about fundamental duties, that we as citizens of India have fundamental duties, which are there in Part 4A of the Constitution. Our fundamental duty, among other, is to ensure that there is unity and integrity of India. We can't say that, oh, we will preach secession, or we will preach that some part should not be a part of India. That is not permitted. You can come from here. Go ahead. Huh? Yeah. So unity and integrity. Then cherish the heritage of India. We have a huge heritage running into a couple of thousand years. We have to be proud of our heritage, and that is one of our fundamental duties to, apart from the sovereignty and integrity of India, to also, talk about the heritage of India, to preserve the cultural heritage of India, the historical heritage of India. Then you have fundamental duties also talks about brotherhood among all the people. That's a part of fraternity, which I have already addressed. To value and preserve the rich heritage of the composite of our composite culture. Our culture is not only Hindu culture or Muslim culture or Zoroastrian culture or Christian culture, it is a composite culture. We have taken elements of everything. That's why we have 18 different religions in our country. To develop a scientific temper, we can't say that, let us not look at anything scientifically. Let's not look at anything, in a logical manner. If I believe something, whether I'm right or wrong, whether there's evidence for that, yes or no, it doesn't matter. We have to develop the scientific temper. To look at everything scientifically, see whether we have data available for a point of view that we have. Somebody says, oh, this is not correct. Is there any evidence to say that, or is it just your belief that you're saying something? So scientific temper has to be developed, and that's very, very important in my view for young students. Finally, protect and preserve the environment. Those of you who are living in and near Delhi in the NCR region know what kind of an environment we're having. Okay, AQI of 400, 500. Now, what are we doing to preserve the environment? Are we destroying forests? Are we, polluting the air? Are we polluting the water? It's not only the air, it's also the water, right? So the environment around us must also be protected and preserved. And you, as students who are growing up over here in Delhi and around Delhi, and of course students all over the country, have this duty that our environment must also be protected. So the values of our constitution, if I just sum up, you will find them in the preamble to the constitution, which is there right in front of you. And how do you inculcate these values? What do you do to promote these values? That you will find in the chapter on fundamental duties in our constitution. It's the short chapter, which just tells you about 10 or 11 things that we have to follow as citizens, all citizens, not only some citizens, all citizens. That is how we foster the values of our constitution. So thank you very much, and all the best to all of you. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
We, before Justice Lokur leaves, we'll just take a few questions. Can we have the mics, please? You also come. Yeah, go ahead. Just take the mic, then. Just take your name and school. Yeah.
So I am Pavani Bansal from Cambridge School, Greater Noida, and मेरा सवाल ये है कि जितनी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी हमारी है एनवायरनमेंट को बचाने की, उतनी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी सरकार की भी तो है ना, तो सरकार उससे पूरा क्यों नहीं करती है?
सरकार ने
तो सरकार उस रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी को पूरा क्यों नहीं करती है?
अब ये तो मैं कह नहीं सकता, पर जो आप कह रहे हैं बिल्कुल सही है कि ये एनवायरनमेंट, ये प्रदूषण, इसको प्रोटेक्ट करना हमारी ड्यूटी है, सरकार की भी ड्यूटी है। सरकार तो कह रही है कि हम कुछ कर रहे हैं, पर दिखता नहीं है कि क्या कर रहे हैं। इसलिए हमारे यहाँ 400 के आसपास 390 के आसपास AQI है।
बिकॉज ऐसा तो नहीं है ना कि सरकार वाले अपने लिए कोई दूसरी हवा या कोई दूसरा एनवायरनमेंट
नहीं
लेके
नहीं
आएंगे।
नहीं नहीं, उनकी भी जिम्मेदारी है, बिल्कुल आप सही कह रहे हैं।
In fact, which Justice Lokur mentioned, Article 21 clearly says right to life and personal liberty. The Supreme Court has repeatedly held that the right to life under Article 21 includes the right to life with human dignity in a clean, healthy, and pollution-free environment. No, that's a landmark judgment. Repeatedly.
फिर ये तो 24/7 हर किसी के ह्यूमन राइट्स की वायलेशन है,
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल।
इवन सरकार की भी।
Pointed. Yeah. Yeah. Come on.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Agrima Rastogi, and I'm from the Manthan School. My question to you is, which part of the Constitution do you feel is the most underrated, yet the most powerful?
Yeah, you see, the most powerful definitely is the preamble, right? And underrated in the sense that people say that preamble is there, but what the preamble says in just a few words is the essence of the Constitution, right? So we don't give importance to the preamble. There are certain other parts of the Constitution which are also very, very important. The directive principles of state policy. The state has to do something for the benefit of the people, right? Then you have the fundamental duties. We don't talk about fundamental duties, but all of us have, a duty towards the Constitution of India. We talk a lot about fundamental rights. Okay, so very important. So these are broadly some of the more important aspects of the Constitution, but the most powerful, if you ask me for my opinion, would be the preamble.
Thank you so much.
I think we'll just take one more now. The same school may not come in again. The other school? Yeah, go ahead.
Good morning, sir. And my friends, I'm Prikshit from Dipalya, Govindpuri. So, sir, I have a question and I have a concern about the right to equality. They always said there is a equality between the peoples, but there one question arises: the reservations. Some peoples get admissions in college in less marks, so it does not get that it has been discrimination between the students.
Yeah, you see, like I said, historically, it is not some people, it is people belonging to the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, or the other backward classes. Over centuries, for example, they have not had equal opportunity at all. They have been untouchables, belonging to the scheduled caste, Dalit, for example, who were not even allowed to enter the village. So how do you make them equal to the rest of us? Right? That is the basic philosophy in reservations. That give them a stepping stone, and then you can, make them equal. Recently, the Chief Justice of India, who has just retired 2 days ago, he had talked about the creamy layer. That is to say, people who have already got the benefit of reservations, you can't get it for every generation, because now you have achieved that equality, right? So this is work in progress, as Suhas mentioned. The Constitution of India is work in progress. It will take some time, but ultimately, the idea of equality, I think, should be there, available for all of us. We can take one more question.
One more. Yeah, I think the Bluebells has not asked something about it. Come. Yeah, the mic.
And after this,
my name is Tanish. I'm from Bluebells. So my question is, the preamble talks about people about how people don't clearly favor hate speech, but they are the ones who do it.
Sorry,
can you repeat
the
that?
preamble talks about how people don't clearly favor hate speech.
No, the preamble doesn't talk about that. That's part of our laws, that we should not have hate speech.
Yeah. Now, Justice Lokur wants a girl to speak up now. One last question from a girl. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
No, maybe that side somebody.
Where,
Yeah.
where do you want?
Anyway.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Good morning, sir. My name is Aditi Singh. I am from Shri Global School. I want to ask that the government doesn't take the DPSP that seriously. They don't follow that like that much. So what should be like do to like that government should start following and taking it more seriously?
Yes.
More seriously, the Constitution.
No,
No,
the
DPS.
directive principles.
Directive principle.
Yeah, you see, the Constitution says that fundamental rights are justiciable. You can go to the court and say my fundamental right is violated. But the Constitution also says that the directive principles of state policy, right, are really, this is the way we would like the country to move forward. And you cannot use that as a right. It's only for the government in power to ensure that we move in that direction. You can't go to the court and say, implement the directive principles of state policy. And so therefore you have elections that which political party or which group of political parties can take the country forward in the direction that is postulated by the directive principles, and vote for them and hope that they, take us forward in that direction. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll thank Justice Lokur for coming. He has to rush for another meeting. So it was very nice of you, Madan, to come and address the students, and they'll remember this, what he spoke about the Constitution and the values for a long, long time to come. And you must imbibe these values in your personal lives. That's very critical for our nation to survive as a constitutional democracy. So thank you. Give him a hand.
There's just one thing that I want to say. There are now some books for the teachers who are here on the Constitution of India for young minds. One of them is written by Justice Leela Seth, the Constitution of India for Children, I think it's called. There are one or two other books. Very good. They explain the Constitution of India in simple words. And I would request you to, please tell the library in your schools to try and get these books. Thank you very much, and all the best to all of you.
Okay. So we'll now carry on with the second part of our program. By the way, there are now there are three judges with us. One is one of the discussants, Dr. Smita Patil from IGNOU. And then she'll, of course, be addressing you also. And then there is S.N. Sahu, who was the press secretary and the OSD to the President of India and later to the Prime Minister. And then there is Rakesh Bhattapyal, professor at JNU. So they are already judging and noting down. So all the questions you've asked are going to be taken up. They have noted all them. And then we'll be giving three copies of the Constitution, which you will carry home, the three top interventions. Okay? So, so just be careful and listen very cogently to what's happening. And now let's welcome Dr. Smita Patil. Yeah. Yeah. And S.N. Sahu, please come. There are actually two joining online, so this can't go virtually, So we can't honor them. But S.N. Sahu, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. There is then Rakesh, Professor Rakesh Bhattapyal. Okay. So they are noting everything about what you are, there's a very pertinent question. What's your name, which you asked? What's your name again? Pavli Bansal. Okay. She asked a very pertinent question about, the environment. And I mentioned Article 21. So the government ostensibly is not, there were some kids demonstrating that why there's pollution and why can't we tackle it. And they were picked up by the cops and put into jail. I mean, on judiciary, what is it called? Judicial, what is it? What is the word? Judicial remand. They were given judicial remand for a week or something. Now, that's not very much on. But you know, the one issue was that it seems that they used some pepper spray on the cops. Now, I don't know whether what was that, because sometimes you have a knee-jerk reaction. You know, some women, for their safety, young girls, carry pepper spray in their purse or pocket or whatever. So as a knee-jerk reaction, they may have used it because they may have been hit or assaulted or whatever. So I don't know, but this should have been looked at very carefully, and they shouldn't have been treated the way they were. At least I personally feel that. Now, so as I explained to you, we have three discussants who will take the floor now. Dr. Smita Patil, who's Associate Professor, School of Gender and Development Studies at the IGNOU. This is the Indira Gandhi National Open University. Okay. And then there is Surajkumar Thube, Visiting Professor of Political Science, Ashoka University. Is he there? Yeah. So we'll just see him on. Yeah. Can we see him? Yeah. Yeah. Just raise your hand. Yeah. Okay. So he is, you know, it was not very nice of him to join. He's joining us from Ashoka University. He will address you. And then there is Professor Aakash Singh Rathore. Yeah. Morning. Yeah. He is joining from Tunis, you know, in Tunisia. And there it's very early. What is the time there with you?
It is 6:15.
6:15 in the morning. We have woken him up to address you, you know. Very nice of you to join us.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, okay. So now we'll first have Professor Aakash Singh Rathore address you, because we can't keep him awake long, you know. Okay. So Aakash, can you take the floor?
Yes, I'm very happy to. 10 minutes is
Yeah, 10 minutes to 12 minutes. Yeah.
Okay. So I have to begin by apologizing. I might have frightened the organizers, because I was supposed to join at 9:45 a.m. India time, and I got confused with the timing, and I thought I was joining the technical preparation, but it turns out I landed up right in the middle of the seminar. So I apologize for being late, but I'm glad that you can hear me, and I hope that you can see me. Although I wish I were a bit more presentable. I thought I was going to have some time to get changed and dressed and so on, but I confused the time difference. So before I begin, I'm very honored to be here, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to speak to and with younger people. That's always the most important thing for me as a scholar, legal scholar, and academician. You know, we all learned our specializations decades ago. Those of us who teach at the university and so on. And the only way that our knowledge continues to broaden and develop is in interaction with younger people, the students and researchers. And that's what keeps our ideas fresh and alive and progressing. So without the student, you know, there could be no teacher. Now, having said that, after hearing the questions that were posed to the justice, I decided that I was going to discuss something a little less technical than what I had originally planned. Originally, I was going to discuss some events surrounding the Constituent Assembly and how the preamble to the Constitution came to be drafted. It's a bit of a technical discussion based on prior historical documents and so on. But I see, or I heard from these the questions that were being asked, a certain passion and some anxiety and some, disappointment, we could even say, in the contemporary situation, in the way that our government, our policy, our polity, our constitution, and our political democracy is working at this moment. For example, with the question of the environment. And so it made me decide that I'm going to discuss something a little bit, instead of technical, a little more philosophical, if you don't mind. We're entering in an area that is referred to as jurisprudence. Jurisprudence is a kind of philosophy behind the law. And I'll just start with a very simple question. We're here to talk about the values of the Constitution. But I'm going to ask you a question in response to a question that a student asked. What if my values are different from your values? And I know no student asked that in particular, but two students did ask two different things. One on the question of reservation and how that seems to be a reverse discrimination that violates the idea of equality, that violates the value of equality, we could say. And another asked about hate speech. And hate speech seems to, or the prohibition of hate speech is a prohibition of my freedom to speak. If reservation can be seen as something that seems to violate equality, hate speech can be seen as something that seems to violate liberty. So from the point of view of, let's say, the reaction, the anger and frustration regarding reservation, students will say or articulate that, for example, forward caste students, let's say, someone who doesn't belong to the scheduled caste, who is not from a historically disadvantaged community or caste, they might say, yes, but trying to protect that group is violating my equality. I'm not treated equally because my marks are not considered on their own merits. They're put into a relative context, and other people are allowed to enter or gain a seat that I can't. So my equality is violated. And as the other student had mentioned about hate speech, what if I want to say something? What if it is my value to articulate negative ideas about a community or a group or a religious community? What if that's part of my value system? Then isn't my freedom of speech, which is supposed to be protected in the Constitution, isn't that being violated? So am I not being deprived of my liberty? So we have two kind of conundrums here. Conundrum is a very difficult puzzle that is hard to understand. We are supposed to be following our Constitution, which guarantees to us both liberty and equality. And yet, in the pursuit of equality, what we find is that our liberty is being violated. In the pursuit of seeking our liberty, we find that we're able to reduce equality. If I'm speaking badly of a community, then I'm not accepting them as equal to myself or my own community. And what we find then is that these fundamental ideas of the Constitution, as the Justice had pointed out, two among several of the most important words in the Constitution are liberty and equality. We find that there's a kind of contradiction between these two principles. The more that you give liberty, it takes away from equality. The more that you pursue equality, it takes away from liberty. And somehow the two of the most important principles that we must preserve and protect, they are the heart of the Constitution, and they are the heart of any political democracy around the world. You know that any democracy in the world is defined by how it preserves liberty for its citizens and equality for its citizens through the rule of law. And yet we find in the two questions by the students that were posed that they might be antagonistic to each other. You might have two things you need to preserve and support that fundamentally contradict each other. So this is what's known as a zero-sum game, that the more you give to one, you're taking from the other. The more you give to the other, you're taking from. So how is it then that we have, as two of the most important ideas, principles in this constitution, how is it that we have a resolution? How do we resolve this seeming contradiction? How is it that we allow this zero-sum game to not be zero-sum? How is it that we allow that maybe you can increase liberty without decreasing equality, or you can try to increase equality without decreasing liberty? How is it that we can manage to find that possibility? The answer to that is also one of the most fundamental terms of the Constitution, which the Justice had mentioned, and that is fraternity. Why we have always this triple formation: liberty, equality, and fraternity. You've heard that as the motto from the French Revolution. It's in the preamble to our Constitution. It's mentioned almost as the fundamental principle of a modern nation state, that this is what you need, this trio of principles, these fundamental values of liberty, equality, and fraternity. Well, we know what liberty is. It is the freedom, whether it's a freedom of expression, of freedom of movement, rights to preserve my private property, that things shouldn't just be snatched away from me, and so on. These are our liberties. We know what equality is, that each of us should be treated equally before the law, irrespective of our differences. I happen to be a male of a certain age and of a certain socioeconomic background that is rather privileged when you compare it to vast number of other people. Does that mean that these privileges that I enjoy should also allow me to be treated differently when I approach a court, when I approach a court of law, or when I'm confronted by the police or any kind of organ of the state, just because most of the world is unfortunately remains a male-dominated society, and I happen to be a male? Does that mean that I should walk into the court and have a greater say, more power, more influence than a woman who might be standing next to me? Of course not. It is a primary principle that, irrespective of the differences, we do have differences. Equality doesn't mean we're all the same. It is precisely because we are all different that the equality principle, this value, is so fundamental. Precisely because we are different, we must be treated equally before the law. The rule of law must command that, irrespective of your privileges, power, race, religion, gender, ethnicity, all of these things, irrespective of all of those, you must be treated equally. So liberty and equality are fairly easy to understand. We all experiencing them on a daily basis. But what on earth is fraternity? And fraternity is really the answer to the puzzle. How do you promote liberty without reducing equality? How do you promote equality without reducing liberty? Or in concrete terms, how is it that you can introduce something like reservation without making a huge number of students from advantaged castes and classes to not feel like they are being discriminated against? Or how can you allow the restraint or forcing people not to say certain words about other persons, other communities, other groups, without making them feel like I have no right to speak, I'm being oppressed and denied my rights. How do you do that? You do that only through fraternity, and that's why fraternity is fundamental. But we don't know what it means. We don't experience it on a daily basis. But it is a very simple and basic concept, which now, if I get back to the way the Constitution was drafted, was articulated by the drafting committee who drafted the preamble to the Constitution in these words, which was affection for everyone and hatred for none. So what we this is very ambiguous. Obviously, we would have to unpack it over time, but what I'm trying to introduce to you is that what you need to do in the future to resolve these questions that you yourself have about, am I being denied equality? Am I being denied liberty? You need to start to unpack what on earth does the idea of fraternity mean that is demanded of me by this Constitution? What does it mean? In essence, for the drafters of the Constitution, it meant affection for everybody and hatred for none. Now, I began by saying, what if my values are different from your values? And we're trying to talk about the values of the Constitution, but values is a very ambiguous word. My value might be hatred. My value might be to not respect anyone. Well, it comes down to a fundamental thing. What is the meaning of the Constitution? The Constitution is a contract between all of the citizens and the state. And in this contract, whenever you sign a contract, you have certain obligations. And if you don't fulfill those obligations, you are not fulfilling your side of the contract, and the contract is null and void. Now, the only reason that you have any identity as an Indian, as a person who enjoys liberty, as a person who enjoys equality, is because of this contract that is our Constitution. If there were no Constitution, we would have a state of lawlessness, where anyone could do anything, because what prevents them from doing it? There are no laws, there is no rule of law, there is no police, there's only various kinds of tyrannies and different groups and so on. So this, on the side of this contract, when I am guaranteed liberty and equality, there's something I have to contribute, because a contract goes in two ways. You know, a contract can mean anything, right? If you go out and you buy a new mobile phone, they have to give you the phone when you give them the money. And this is a contract, basically. The phone costs 50,000 rupees, and I will hand over that 50,000 rupees and get the phone. And this is the contract, basically. Both sides have to perform. Now, a constitution is a contract. The one side is supposed to perform, guaranteeing our liberty and equality. But what is the other side supposed to perform? What is it that you are supposed to perform? You are supposed to adhere to two fundamental values, which is that you will have affection for all of the other citizens, all of the other people who are in this contract, and you will have hatred for none. And it is true that if you do not subscribe to these values, you are excluding yourself from this contract, because you're not putting your side in, just as I try to grab the mobile phone, but I don't hand over the 50,000 rupees. That's theft. You are enjoying so much. Of course, we all have disadvantages, troubles, problems. We cannot breathe in Delhi at this moment, and so on. And so, as another student rightly said, why is it that only one side is expected to fulfill the contract? But at the same time, if you enjoy certain things, like I enjoy the mobile phone, we all enjoy the roads that got you here, whether by bus or metro or taxi or whatever, you reached IIC. I'm sure it wasn't easy, but you did it. And you did that because the state has offered you this possibility to enjoy your freedom of movement. You have that liberty, right? The freedom to move about. But are you fulfilling your side? You have just taken something from the contract, but have you given something to the contract? If you refuse to give your affection for your fellow citizens, if you refuse or if you intend on giving hatred to your fellow citizens. You are violating the contract, that is the Constitution. Now, if you did not subscribe to these kind of foundations behind fraternity, what you will find is that every time you try to pursue liberty, you will take away from equality. And every time you try to pursue equality, you will take away from liberty. So if you understand reservation only in terms of my own group, that and I will not have empathy or affection for another group who are also citizens just like me, who have been historically disadvantaged and who continue to be disadvantaged even today. If I refuse to have any empathy, affection, and I think only of me and my community, then I will be violating this contract because I will not be applying the value of fraternity. If I should demand that I can say whatever I want against a vulnerable group of people, then I am violating this idea of hatred for no one. I am not enacting fraternity. I'm not living fraternity. And when we do that, it means that my liberty is going to take away from others' equality. Or if we apply the principle of equality, what about me? What about my equality? Without compassion or empathy or consideration for others who are also signatories to this contract, then we can only have equality by taking away liberty. The only way to have them both is by living out and practicing fraternity. And so if I had, now I've referenced 3 questions of the students, if I had had the 4th one about what is the most important part of the Constitution, I would say, and I conclude now, that it is the idea of fraternity. And I hope you will all try to study deeper what it is, because it will help you resolve personal crises, personal problems that we have about my perception that I'm not being treated equally, or my perception that I am not being given my liberty. Thank you so much for your attention. I hope I didn't get too vague and abstract and philosophical, but I do hope you will continue to understand fraternity. Thank you.
Aakash, can you, after the other 2 have spoken, can you stay on and answer a few questions?
Yes, I certainly can. I hope the other 2 don't exceed the time as much as I did.
No.
Okay.
So we'll now ask Suraj to come, and then after that, Smita will speak. So Suraj, can you come, please?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay, perfect. So thank you so much, Mr. Borker, for organizing this extremely important event, for inviting me as a discussant. And it was wonderful to hear Justice Lokur give a broad overview of the significance of the Indian Constitution. It was lovely to hear Professor Aakash bring out the philosophical aspects of certain principles of the Indian Constitution. I think what I would like to do is I just want to focus on 3 to 4 specific points of certain principles again enshrined in the Indian Constitution. I want to focus on the Indian preamble again. So it's good that we all are talking about similar things: liberty, equality, fraternity. And I think I want to stick to that. And when I say I want to focus on 3 to 4 specific points, I think I want to focus on 3 to 4 specific popular quotes by the architect of the Indian Constitution, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. And what I want you guys to do is to try and think more deeply about the significance of the quote, right? And let's try and think about it collectively as to why are these quotes significant? So here's the first quote. Constitutional morality is not a natural sentiment. It has to be cultivated. So it's not a natural sentiment. We shouldn't assume that just because we have certain principles in the Constitution, like liberty, equality, and fraternity, that we are already sort of amenable to certain principles we always need to keep discussing about these principles, these values, because it always has to be a present continuous task, right? So we should never assume that it's a natural sentiment. We should always assume it as a collective, as a social, as a communal activity to think about constitutional morality. What is constitutional morality? It is nothing but a set or an act of adhering to certain principles enshrined in the Indian Constitution. In this case, we're talking about liberty, equality, and fraternity, right? What happens if there is a decline of constitutional morality? One of the things that happens with the negation or the decline of constitutional morality is it leads to the shrinking of spaces of critical thinking. So constitutional morality emerges primarily from critical thinking, especially when we think about what Professor Aakash was talking about, the significance of fraternity. If we have to achieve that as a collective, critical thinking is extremely important, right? And why am I saying that? Because, again, going back to Dr. Ambedkar, he would say that if there is a negation of constitutional morality, it necessarily leads to something called as hero worship or bhakti, right? And there's a popular quote by Dr. Ambedkar where he talks about or where he describes bhakti or hero worship. What is that quote? Bhakti in religion may be a road to salvation, but in politics, hero worship is a sure road to degradation and eventual dictatorship. Right? So think about constitutional morality and hero worship as two extremes of that spectrum. And we need to think more about constitutional morality and trying to realize different aspects of constitutional morality. And if we don't do that, we are going to descend into hero worship as a collective. And that would lead the shrinking of spaces of critical thinking. So we don't have to do that. We don't have to go to that space. We have to keep thinking more about the significance of constitutional morality, so safeguarding constitutional morality, right? So that is one quote. Here's the second quote. Liberty, equality, and fraternity are not to be treated as separate items in a trinity. They form a unity of trinity, in the sense that to divorce one from another is to defeat the very purpose of democracy. So what do we mean by this? All these three principles are equally important in the eyes of Dr. Ambedkar, right? And if we think about divorcing one from the other, it makes no sense because collectively it gives the core essence of what we understand as democracy. And how does Dr. Ambedkar understand democracy? For him, democracy is not merely a form of government. So we're not talking about any form of government, right? What is more important is we need to think about democracy as a mode of associated living or of conjoint communicated experience. What do we mean by that? What are the key terms over here? Associated living and conjoint communicated experience. So again, the emphasis is on the collective, the social. We need to think about everyone as fellow human beings, as fellow equal human beings, right? And that sentiment needs to be cultivated again and again. And this definition comes from Dr. Ambedkar's arguably most popular text, which was Annihilation of Caste. So this is the definition he gives over there about democracy. And I want you guys to think more about this particular definition as well, right? And to think more specifically about fraternity, to go back to what Professor Aakash had spoken so well about, there's another third quote which I want you guys to think about, which is very specific about fraternity. So here's the quote. Vidya or knowledge is important for pradnya or insight, which in turn leads to shila, which is right action. What do we mean by this? Knowledge, insight, and right action are three things which are important, which are key aspects of fraternity, right? Keep thinking about these three things. These three things are key aspects of fraternity. And Dr. Ambedkar would say that what is the foundation of these three key aspects? the foundation of these three key aspects is something called as karuna, or compassion, right? And another word for compassion, which he uses a lot in his writings, is the word maitri. Maitri is nothing but friendship, right? So in a lot of his writings, he equates fraternity with friendship, with a sense of fellow feeling. So think broadly about fraternity as nothing but how we should cultivate the sense of friendship amongst ourselves, cultivate the sense of fellow feeling amongst ourselves. And this sounds very basic because it is very basic, but it is extremely fundamental, especially in today's age, where even after so many years of the enactment of the Indian Constitution, we still see so many cases of caste discrimination, of communal atrocities, of gender-based violence, so on and so forth. And what does this hint at? This basically hints at how we have stopped looking at each other as equal human beings, as fellow human beings. We've lost the sense of treating each other as friends. And Dr. Ambedkar, through his writings, through his speeches, through his ideas, is essentially hinting at the importance of how we need to treat each other as friends. And why is that important? Because once we start treating each other as friends, we start eliminating all forms of discriminatory practices. So no matter what the differences in age is between you and me, between different people, different communities, different religions, different caste people, one thing that unites people on an equal footing is friendship. So we should all think about fraternity in terms of friendship, right? And maitri of friendship is, again, according to Dr. Ambedkar, is the essential foundation for both liberty and equality, right? In fact, Dr. Ambedkar goes on to say that how liberty and equality is not protected by law, but it is actually protected by fellow feeling. It is actually protected by friendship. Law and order is only useful for certain miscreants in society, but what sustains or safeguards the functioning of a society is the feeling of, or the sense of fellow feeling, or the sense of friendship, right? So Maitri as a nurturing force for both individuals and community. And Maitri as a concept is also very interesting because it is not just for human beings as such. Dr. Ambedkar would expand the contours of friendship by talking about how it includes all sentient beings. So it's not just human beings, it also includes animals, it also includes all sentient beings in our environment, right? So that is an extremely important concept, which is moving us away from a human-centric understanding of friendship to go beyond humans and talk about all sentient beings, right? So I think with that, I'll stop. And I want you guys to think more about 3 to 4 points, which we have thought about. And we can maybe talk more about other things in the Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you, Suraj. You've simplified things. Isn't he simplified things so well? I think it's brilliant. Thank you. Thank you. Now we'll have Smita to talk to you. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Suhas Borker. And it was nice to listen to Justice and Aakash and then Suraj. And I was sort of thinking that how would I relate this debate? Because of course the preamble is a very important, and which, as Justice said, it talks about entirely the gist of the Constitution of India. And I think it's been very important that what Aakash said, focusing on the values, and also what Suraj talked about constitutional morality, and bringing out this debate on concept of Maitri, which we call it Mitta. Now, I thought of that, why not to relate this debate in the context of gender? I mean, we do have a constitution in which that I think, as Justice already mentioned about, we are the one who got the voting rights. it's not like the West. Like, for instance, take an example of the USA. They fought more than 100 years to get the voting rights, right? The adult fringes. But we do have, I mean, we got it. And to some extent, then, the ways in which the things function, sometimes feels that even though we got it, we are not able to, sort of exercise in a proper manner. I mean, suddenly, if you look at from the first election till now, the ways in which the things are shaping up. And I'm very, very, I feel very proud to the student, the girl student specifically, who raise a very important question in relation to the environment. And I think that as I was sort of linking this debate, when Suraj was saying that we need to, sort of expand this debate, right? And rethink how we should, relocate this debate, not only, but in the broader concept of linking up with the fertility. Now, my arguments are very simple, and I'm not going to take even 10 minutes, because I think that the preamble which talks about liberty, equality, and fraternity in relation to gender, because see, the category of gender, which is not, I'm exclusively now talking here about the category of women, but the other genders also. So if we relate these debates, one has to see that, of course, I mean, there's no equality, even the Constitution might have given the rights, right? And therefore, you have this debate on, substantive equality versus the other debate that how we should bring up. Like, for instance, women's reservation bill, right? Certain women who were getting the, should be accommodated. And I must also say that in the Constitution Assembly, that when the debates were going on from Kriplani to other women also who contributed much to these debates, right? So we need to know the contribution of the woman. Of course, that we do not deny that the architect of the Constitution, which, sort of brought out the equality debate, who has given rights to us. Like, for instance, if you remember the Hindu Code Bill, the debate, Ambedkar has to, he resigned, and you would see the integrity and the morality debate, what, one would see in a person with certain principles and the commitment, right? Today, we see that that is something which is lacking, and we need to rethink about it, right? At the same time, look at that, we do have the rights. Like, for instance, context of gender, we do have, property rights, inheritance right, right to have the maternity leave. There are so many rights, right? But which is granted under Constitution to us to, bring out that kind of equality, right? Now, the debate, which again in the context of justice and fraternity, which one can relate class, caste communities. And I think that's something which, again, I will also emphasize on this debate of fraternity, because among women also, you would see a different categories of women from class, caste, gender. Even the Constitution may say that. If you look at the article, right? Article 15 onwards also. And I mean, you have fundamentally the fundamental rights and duties, but still that what is something lacking, I think that to connect with each other. And within women, therefore, you would see the categorization of women in which that the woman from the Dalit community or the Adivasi community, or say even today the minorities in India, because when I had a conversation with my friends from cutting across other minority communities, for instance, Sikh or Christian community, constantly telling me now they're feeling discriminated, right? So what is that? And I think that we need to revisit. I also want to sort of add here that look at that. I mean, it's not that we are not opening up. The question which you raised regarding the reservation, and which I think that Aakash very rightly pointed out. But I still want to raise the question on EWS category. So it's not that the minority or the Dalits or the tribals, right, who had been given to bring out that to the up to the that level of equality, they're not someone who are someone conservative in that sense. So it's not that. I mean, one can argue in both ways, right? But I think one of the ways in which we should look into that, how we should retain this and constantly, in everyday basis, cultivate those values of equality, justice, and liberty. And like, for instance, in everyday life, what I mean to say, like, for instance, if you are walking or traveling, right, how one is going to go and in what are the ways one can help. Like, for instance, the concept, like, if you see someone who needs certain helps, right, a disabled person, immediately that compassion should come to you, right? That is how you're going to go and build up these things. At the same time, it's not that, because these I mean, I also see in everyday life the ways in which things are functioning and changing. So I think that these debates on liberty, equality, and fraternity, which we need to also see from the gender perspective, because we do know that women are on the margin, they are subordinated. But I mean, there are different ways in which we can. But as Suraj was pointing out, I mean, the laws are there, and you see every day the ways in which. So there should be a thought provoking, there should be critical engagement. And I, as a person, how would I contribute? I mean, if I'm someone, I'm a citizen of this country, how I can contribute, how I can think positively, how can I do the things in a right approach, right way, and you need, because when you speak the truth, when you are speaking something which is very, very important, you need a certain kind of courage. But believe me, that is something which is going to go and build up you in future, because I see that you are the future of this country. And I can stop it here, that the ways in which the Constitution has given us that, and that's why we do celebrate the Constitution Day today. So I think that you are someone who is the future of this country, and we need to you have to think critically, because I'm not going to get into the philosophical, because two of them spoke very brilliantly, and of course the justice. I just want to that bring out this, because in a patriarchal society, the ways in which we see the systemic and structural violence based on class, caste, gender, patriarchy, and the violence which is going on in the society everyday basis. It might be in relation with the class, caste, community, gender, but I think that you have to have build up that things. And I would also extend that it's not only to male, female, but also the things around, like, for instance, transgender, LGBTQ plus community, and so on and so forth. So this debate, I will just stop it, but I'm happy to take the questions. Thank you.
Now we move into the interactive session. Okay. So can we have the two others on the frame, please? If they can be brought on the frame. Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll take one from each school. Okay. So yeah, we have 5 schools with us. So first round, the one will come from each school. Okay. So we can't, we must give equal opportunity. I mean, things must begin at home, no? So we'll now first we'll take a question from Dipale. Okay. Anybody from Dipale? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, give the mic here. Just take your name for the judges to note your names.
Good morning to all. Myself, Parth Sharma of Dipalya School. Sir, we all have freedom of speech. So the censorship of media is not the violation of the freedom of speech, and also the censor board of India has most of the people in the ruling party, so they will censor the people, those who said they're against opinion about them, and also they ban the films and the series which have a negative opinion about them. So do the judiciary not interfere in it? If it is so, they are violating our right to speech.
Yeah. So could you get the question, Smita, or should he repeat it? He got it. You both got that, Suraj and Aakash? Yeah, you got it. Okay. So now, what do you suggest? Do we pick up a few and then you will answer, or what do you suggest, Aakash? Pick up a few more questions. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I
Yeah.
think that would be good, since there are three of us.
Okay. Okay. So please sit. Yeah. The judges are please noting the names. Okay. Yeah. So now we pick up. Next is we pick up Shri Ram Gopal School. Okay. One student from Shri Ram. Yeah, the gentleman there. Yeah.
Sir, as sir was saying,
No, take your name first.
I'm Dhruv from Shri Ram Global School. And my question is that can't reservation be done economical wise? And sir, talking about equality, as Justice was saying that liberty means liberty of thoughts, belief, worship. So there was this person, Rajiv Dixit. He's a social activist. He used to post videos about the government and he got executed. So we too want to say, but we are scared. And judiciary is not taking any action.
Okay.
And even talking about Bihar elections, I'll just tell you that there was this Bihar election which recently happened. So this is the...
Don't move your mic, keep it steady.
This is the factual data of the election commission. Total votes was 7.42 crores. And the polled votes was 66.9%. It had to be 5 crores. But when the votes were counted, it was 7.45 crores. What do we do? And this is the real data on the site, on the Government of India site.
Okay, fine. Okay. Now we, that was Shri Ram Global School. Now we take Cambridge School. Cambridge. Yeah. Yeah. Now we'll take which are the hands from Cambridge? Yeah, go ahead. There'll be another round, okay?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kirti.
So hold it and speak loudly, because they must hear.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kirti. I'm from Cambridge. So my question is that we have had many speakers talking about constitutional values. And since we're on constitution, constitution in a general view is a rule book where we have laws. So where do you think these values actually reflect? In the laws or the citizens or the people or the institutions that the constitution has established?
Okay, fine. So now we go to Bluebells. Yeah, go ahead. Give the mic, please.
Good morning, sir. This is Akshata from Bluebells. My question is that, ma'am, as you talked about the physical disabled people, right? As we talked about physical disabled people, what I would like to ask is that you talked about compassion, but what also is to be talked about is that our constitution hasn't created space for people. We haven't created schools for them. We don't have the necessities, the amenities to work and survive. So, and also the SCs and STs, you talked about the reservations, right? We also, there are multiple people who are taking this advantage of using it. The majoritarian people are taking the advantage to take this, and there are multiple cases of people using this opportunity. So that's my question. I hope it was understandable.
Okay, fine. So now we go to this is the last of the first round. We go to Manthan. The girl there, yeah.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Aishni Gupta. I'm from the Manthan School. So I have two questions. The first is, at the time of the making of our constitutions, our ancestors weren't afraid to make difficult choices, even if they went against the norms of the society of that time. So do you think that in today's time, we fear to make controversial but important amendments in our constitution, for example, broadening the definition of rape and its punishments, LGBTQ plus rights, euthanasia, etc., to please the majority mindset? The second question that I have is for Suraj sir. He mentioned that Dr. Ambedkar acknowledged that frequent discussions about the constitution and understanding of the constitution is the way that we can ensure that dominance of any political party or leader does not occur. But the constitution is a very hard book to interpret and understand, and I'm sure that Dr. Ambedkar knew it at that time, but India's population was highly uneducated at that time, but the constitution is still very hard. So, and in today's time as well, a very very small percentage of the population can understand and interpret it. So, how do you think that he ensured that we managed to not come into a state of dominance and dictatorship of any party?
Okay, thank you. Now we'll go to the panel. Smita, will you also come here? Then three of you can pick up whatever you feel is you would like to answer. Okay? Can we get a stool? Get a stool. Yeah, we're more comfortable. Yeah. No, that's okay. Yeah, come. So, Aakash, would you like to pick up whatever you feel? Then after that, Suraj and then Smita.
All right. Thank you. I noted down these questions. I think there's a similarity in all of the questions, and it's a bit disheartening to see that similarity, which is a kind of disappointment, maybe even cynicism about the current state of politics, policy, and so on in India. I do want to say that, you know, I'm speaking to you from Tunisia right now, and I teach also in the United States and in Europe and here and other places. And the young people of your generation are articulating precisely that discomfort in all of these places, across the entire world. Basically, how I would put it is that the students are saying, we are trying to live up to our side of this contract, but the government is failing to live up to its side of the contract. That was seen in the first question about freedom of speech versus all of the censorship and potentially biased judiciary. So we're supposed to have this right, but it's we're too frightened or we're too controlled to be able to exercise this right. The second question, which was first about economic reservation, but moved into what about if you know, the common answer I should be giving you is, well, if you're dissatisfied, then you need to vote and change the your elected officials. But this is getting even more difficult because the second question was suggesting that maybe our vote is not being counted. Maybe there's some kind of manipulation. So maybe the entire system will not allow what the traditional answer has always been, which is if you don't like things, you're in a democracy, so you have the right to elect officials and change things. And now we're saying, but what if that is also broken. And that leads to the third question, that the government is not creating schools for the physically disabled and so on, and that adding on to that, that people are also abusing reservation. So, we have a system in place to try to give equality, and yet that system seems to be malfunctioning. It's not giving equality where we need it, and it's being abused in its operation. So this obviously will also lead to cynicism and a disheartening attitude by the youth. And then no one asked a question about this, but I can add to all of your troubles. You know what youth unemployment is like in India now. You know that we're going to have a very big hit on the possibility of employment of young people after AI starts taking over routine jobs and things like this. So we have a future that is looking scary, is looking bleak, and the normal answer that someone like me would give to you is, well, change your elected officials. But even that seems to be taken away from you as a possibility. So on the whole, it does look like a frightening scenario for the young people. Now I want to, after having maybe scared you a little bit, I want to take you back to what someone said, that the government, at the time of the framing of the Constitution, the founding framers took hard decisions. Now I want you to think about that era. You know about partition. You've all learned about it. Massive bloodshed, absolute violence, lawlessness, chaos in India. There was a time when, for example, Dr. Ambedkar was trying to get his law degree, so eventually he could, come on the drafting committee and do the work. When he could not even enter a building, he had, I'll just tell you a small historical thing. The amount of money that he lacked, for which he had to leave his education in England, was only a couple of hundred rupees, only 200, between 150, 250 rupees. He could not bring together, and for that reason, he couldn't complete his education. Why I'm telling you this is, I know that the situation seems a little bleak right now, but if you look back at the position that the framers of our Constitution were in, at the violence, at the bloodshed, at the lack of opportunity, at the exclusion, at the marginalization. Right now, we don't take care of our physically disabled to the level that we need to, but imagine what it was like 75 years ago, 80 years ago, 90 years ago. The generation managed, despite efforts, and this is what I'm trying to answer to all of the questions, that generation managed, despite a calamitous situation that is equally, if not more, vulnerable and precarious than the one you face. They managed to put together, against all odds, this constitution that does, as you all see, represent possibilities of hope, because your complaint is not that the Constitution is bad. Your complaint is that government and maybe the population is not living up to the Constitution. So you recognize that the Constitution is a remarkable achievement that we all need or want badly to be implemented properly, and it's not being implemented properly. So what I'm telling you is that your situation seems dire. You have every reason to be cynical. You have every reason to be a little afraid about the future. But you can find hope in the very process of how the Constitution came into existence, because that was also a generation of utter hopelessness, a generation of complete precariousness, of complete violence, of bloodshed, of total inequality, of hatred between communities, of radicalism, of terrorism. It was really a horrible historical moment. And in that moment, young people like yourself got through their education, through their activity, through their coalition building, through their fraternity one with another, managed to create a document that now we have, that your generation can push forward in ensuring it is actually lived up to. So I'm not saying you don't have the right to be cynical. I can see why you would be cynical, but you also have a paradigm to look back to and see things have been hard for other generations too, and they achieved remarkable things. And we have been given that gift, one of those remarkable things, the Constitution. And now our generation is going to make it, to realize it, to make it actually mean something, to make it actually implemented. Fraternity will actually be exercised. Equality will actually be implemented. Rule of law will actually be implemented. That is the burden of your generation. It doesn't look easy. And, there's all over the globe, the young people are pessimistic that they'll be able to do it. But you look back at history, it has been done before, and you can do it also.
I don't think I can really top that response. I think Professor Aakash has really spoken well about so many things. I think I'll very quickly speak about a few things. Reservations based on economics or economic criteria. I think we should all maybe try and understand the basic motive behind reservations or why reservations were started. I think, as Justice Lokur also mentioned, reservations were started because we're talking about communities like SC, STs primarily and OBCs later, who have faced historical discrimination. We're not talking about a few years or few decades. We're talking about thousands and thousands of years of discrimination, right? And we need reservation to upend that situation. And it is still continuing because we haven't yet achieved the complete sort of obliteration or complete decimation of those forms of discrimination, right? Those forms of social and cultural discrimination. So we need to understand the significance of that idea of reservation. And at the same time, we should also understand that reservation was never meant to be a poverty alleviation scheme, right? We have a lot of other welfare schemes. We have a lot of other schemes which look to reduce poverty, reduce inequality. The reservation was never one of them. Reservation had a very specific agenda of seeing to it that social and cultural discrimination in our society declines and ultimately ends. And that is still a process which is still happening, which we still need to come to that stage wherein there is full equality among human beings. So we need to think about reservation in that sense, I feel. There was one specific question about how the Constitution is hard to interpret. I'm not sure if it is hard to interpret. I think if you look at the giant screen in front of you, I mean, the preamble of the Constitution to begin with, I don't think it's hard to interpret it. It's an extremely accessible page. It's an extremely accessible text. If you look at each and every section of the Indian Constitution, it's extremely well written. It's extremely accessible. It's extremely serviceable to different people, even if you are semi-literate or even if you haven't had the greatest amounts of literacy skills as such. It is still an accessible text, I feel. It is available, of course, in different languages now. So I think the more important thing is for us, especially for your generation, is to constantly keep discussing about different facets of Indian Constitution, informally, formally, in events like these, for example. That is the most important thing. We shouldn't keep discussions about Constitution relegated only to days like these. So yes, it is an important day. Yes, we have to commemorate the Indian Constitution. But to live Constitution on a daily basis is much more important than to think about the Constitution as an event, as an annual event which we need to commemorate. So try and think about different aspects of the Indian Constitution. It's a fascinating document. And if you think about it philosophically, it becomes more interesting. It becomes more creative. It generates interesting debates and discussions. So keep thinking about that. That's what I would say. I think I would maybe now give it to Professor Patil.
I think Aakash and Suraj already beautifully explained. I wanted to take the last question about it's a tough document or the hard to interpret. I think, I would say what Suraj suggested, but also make a small group and try to read and interpret, because see, why we suddenly feel that it's important to read, right? Because if you go 20 years before, I think when I was also a child, in there will be one subject, civic, and where little bit about the constitution was talked about, right, in this at school level. But now, why is it that we are today feeling that we need to celebrate? We need to seriously look into or read this or interpret it. I think there must be some reason, right? I mean, I fully agree that it's not that we, all of us are those who are committed and who really want that this document, which with a great effort made in the interest of the people of this country, cutting across class, caste, religion, gender. I think that we need to go back, and why we are visiting today again, and why we need to read that. I think once you started reading, I would see that simply then you can start interpreting in your everyday life, as all of you are raising the question, right? And as Aakash pointed out that there's a similarity, but you also need to go beyond what is your future, right, through this, right? And also someone raised the question on disability. I think that look at the ways in which the laws unfolded, the most recent laws, right? So it's a long journey. And I would say even the question which are raised on reservation, you're thinking from your point of view, right? But think that I'm a privilege. I have everything from the ages, but a person who doesn't have, why don't you think from the other person's perspective also? So it's not, I would say that you live in India, it's a beautiful country. Just go across and see from northeast to Maharashtra to south to east, west, north, south, and just look at. I would cite one example from the schools of Maharashtra. Even in the tiny schools, the children from 5th standard onwards started reading Constitution in Marathi. So it's a debate between the teachers and students, and I would say critically read this, between the texts. Aakash wrote a wonderful book, The Preamble of the Constitution. And it's all drawing from the historical, which you can really enjoy. Justice Leela Seth's book, which, Justice mentioned also about. So look at this. Because, when we were child, we used to read Subhash Kashyap and all tiny small books written, right? But it is only that with a very limited understanding. But today, why we are doing it this? Because it's a very important things. And I fully understand that being here, being in Delhi, how difficult it is at every point of life. But let's also be hopeful that we'll work, we'll fight together. Right? Thank you.
We'll go to the next round. You'll have to judge also. No? Yeah. So, will you like to note whenever, somebody asks, yeah. You can be there. That's fine. Whatever you feel. Yeah. Okay. So now quickly we'll go to the second round because we have to close also. So I'll ask Cambridge School to one hand. Yeah. You've already asked, no? So we'll give opportunity. Yeah. Go ahead. Cambridge School. Yeah. Just take your name first for the judges to note.
I am Kushagra Pandey of Cambridge School. My question is to Suraj sir and Smita ma'am. My question is that Ambedkar sir warned against hero worship, but nowadays politicians are getting a status of God. So now we know the problem, but what would be the solution to this? Sir, according to you, does India need stronger institutional safeguards to prevent hero worship in modern day politics? And what would be those safeguards? And sir, my question is to Smita ma'am, that she talked about the consensus making of women in the constituent assembly. So sir, nowadays we can see that what lesson should the parliament learn from the role played by women in the constituent assembly? At that time, sir, that time women were not getting that much rights, but nowadays we have many rights for the women. So now in the parliament, what lessons should we learn from the women from the constituent assembly, especially regarding consensus and empathy? Thank you very much.
Okay. Then we go to Manthan. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Arna Vivek from Madan School. I have two questions actually. The first one is, you highlighted the significance of the preamble. How do the ideas of justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity remain relevant today, especially in the context of social tensions and rapid societal changes? The second question is, human rights have become a global topic of concern. How does our constitution align with the international human rights standards, and what improvements do you think are needed to ensure better protection for vulnerable groups in India? Thank you.
Okay, blue bells. Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Anya Dhawan from Bluebell School. And I think that a theme that's been brought up quite constantly is this idea of inculcating the values of constitutional morality amongst society at large. However, I think just considering the current political status quo, it's quite evident that there is political polarization and there's political hero worship, and that's quite rampant at the moment. So my question is, how do we cultivate this idea of constitutional morality?
Okay. Shri Ram Global School. Have you asked before? No, then you don't. Is there anybody else? Then we'll pass. Okay. Dipale. Yeah, go ahead. Have you asked before? No. Yeah.
Good morning, sir. I would like to get my answer from Aakash, sir. Oh, my name is Bezid Ahmed. Bezid from the Palya School. It's about the contract you talked about. Is it a contract with all citizens as one or individually? For if one is not providing anything or not fulfilling the contract, is it just or is it right for them to enjoy the rights provided by the Constitution?
Okay. Now we'll have an open thing, because one school missed out on that. So anybody, I'll have to randomly pick up one hand. Yeah, there. Have you, no, the one here. You have not asked a question before? Okay, go ahead.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Pavni Thube. I'm from the Manson School. As we all have been talking about equality, to be more specific, if I talk about gender equality, equality for women, my question is that does the delay in passing the Women's Reservation Bill reflect systemic resistance to female political empowerment? Thank you.
Okay. Now I think we'll have to quickly go to the discussants to quickly answer because we have to close the meeting soon because the judges have to finally decide. And Smita is playing a double role. She's a discussant as well as a judge. So Smita, can you please come here? And yeah, and you start first with the answers, then the two can come in. Yeah.
Thank you. I think I'll start with the last question on gender equality. I would call it that, if you ask my personal take on that, to some extent, yes. So to some extent that even when we look at the 128% amendment, which was a couple of years before, I think that this is now a very, very messy business because one particular party which is having certain kind of ideology, or any party which is very, very fundamental in nature. So what kind of those mindsets going to go and represent for whom? That is what a fundamental question we need to ask. It does not mean that we should not have a representation, but again, that the debate which comes back, how we should look at and how should we respond to that. So my take is very clear on that. I mean, we can, the second question, I think I just wanted to say, which is very fascinating to me and Suraj, I think the hero worship. And I think that when particularly Suraj mentioned about with this quotation of Ambedkar, what it means to us is that you have to critically think, because it's not your home is the first place where you learn everything. You know, you go to the school might be the second, but the very, very fundamental things which you start is your home. So how, you sort of engage with your parents, with your siblings, and then, with your teachers, with your fellow colleagues in the school. And I think that, you have to critically think, because this is something to me a very, very serious question, the hero worshipping. And you have to now take a call on yourself, because, you are the growing up. You should critically think and make it. And that's why I said that make a small group, make a habit of reading even the Constitution 1 page a day, or 2 pages in a week, or in continuation. Make that. What is that we are going to lose? Because I'm sitting in India, and I'm very, 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 to some extent, worried about the future. And what Aakash was saying, that no one is talking about the employment, the AI. So you are the coming generation, and if this goes on, we are going to be in danger. We are already, I'm not saying that, but you have to, fight back against. And what are the ways in which, like, it doesn't matter. Go to the court, look at this young people who went, because it's really difficult to breathe in this space. And I was reading, even Bombay is that, even some parts of, if you look at the most recently Nashik, 1,800, trees, which are big trees, they are going to chop out, right? There's a notification out. So there's a people's protest from celebrity to local person who are, sort of fighting back, right? So we have no way out actually to fight back through different modes, variation, and come together. And it should be a collective fight. That is something which is important. Yeah. Thank you.
As the judges decide on who the prizes will go to, we'll ask Aakash and Suraj to give their feedback on the questions, the last round. Yeah. Suraj, can you come first?
Okay, yeah. So very quickly, I think I don't have much to add to what Professor Patil said, but I'll just add a few things. I think on the question of solution to hero worship, very simply, you should just stop hero worshiping. There's no need whatsoever to hero worship anyone. Politicians are there to do their job, like I'm doing my job as a teacher, like other people do their jobs as whatever jobs they do, like you guys would do some jobs after your schooling. Politicians are there to do their job. So it's their job to do what they're doing. So they're no superior human beings, right? So we need not treat them or give them any preferential treatment for any reason whatsoever. Make them more accountable. That's the most important thing. And how do we do that? We should start the most basic thing is we should always start with your local corporators or with your local MLAs, with your local people, local politicians, which are the closest to you in proximity, right? So don't think about how politicians are extremely distant from you, right? How your voice is not going to reach them. What we can do is we should always start with politicians which are nearest to you, right? In the form of corporators, in the form of MLAs. We should try and engage with them in whatever means is possible for us. You can always form informal discussion sessions amongst yourselves. You can try and create some kind of discourse about what's happening in your area, in your locality. You can try and bring about awareness about certain things. And that's how things start, right? They start with your own immediate family, as Professor Patil was saying, and then it branches out to your nearby locales, nearby regions, and then it will go on to sort of larger areas as such. And just one more important point about how we should always start thinking about critical thinking from our family itself. I think that is an extremely important point. I think it's easier, slightly easier perhaps for us to think about critical thinking or to have critical discussions with our friends, with our colleagues, but it's extremely difficult to have critical discussions and debates with our parents, with our siblings, with our extended relatives. But that is where we need to start. And I think at your age, you should always back yourself in the sense that you should always treat yourself as a qualified person to talk about certain things. You should treat yourself as a dignified, equal human being who has the right to talk about certain things, to debate certain things. You should never shy away from talking about critical things, even to your parents, even to your extended relatives. That's the challenging part. But that is what you need to do at your age for sure. So I think that's what I would say, and I'll leave you with that.
Yeah. Aakash? Yeah.
Yes,
go
I
ahead.
will be quick in my reply. I think the questions are largely around what to do. For example, what is the relevance of fraternity today was asked, and how do we overcome the political status quo and hero worship and inculcate constitutional morality. So basically, again, we seem to say, all right, we have certain problems. How is it that we address them? How do we fix them? And what is the utility or usefulness of the Constitution in that effort? So our problems: hero worship, patriarchy, corruption in government, lack of equal services, and all of these issues all have the same answer. You can summarize it in a phrase I hope you have heard before: educate, agitate, organize. Now, you're in the process of your education. That education has to continue, because you need to expand your horizons, read widely. You need, without reading or understanding other points of view, you will be stuck thinking that only your ideas matter and only your problems are significant. But the more you educate yourself and the wider you educate yourself, you can start to transcend that little parochial position and see how the wider world works. In that, with that knowledge, you can agitate. So we know that our electoral avenue is difficult, is being challenged right now. But elections are not the only part of a democratic government. There's also your work in civil society. There's your work in your community. There's your work through all kinds of institutions that aren't just the judiciary or the executive or the legislature. So you can agitate. You can mobilize, organize, and if you do these things, you can start to affect the kind of change that you want to see in terms of our problems like hero worship, in terms of our problems like patriarchy and exclusion. So I would tell you that this is what you can do. You can educate, agitate, and organize, with one caveat, which is that as you undertake all of this, you maintain a commitment to the very idea of fraternity. And because your political opponent is not an enemy, your political opponent is another person who has the same rights as you and has different opinions from you. So they're not an enemy. You have to treat them with a certain amount of compassion, respect, try to think through things from their point of view so that you can communicate. So as you agitate, which you must do, you have to vote, but you also have to agitate. As you agitate and organize and work for your community and work with your community and develop like-minded people to get things changed and to get things done, you do it without violence and you do it without hatred. You do it implementing fraternity. And so if you want to beat your political opponent ideologically, that's wonderful. But if you want to beat them physically, then you are yourself the problem. So you want to agitate, you want to act in your community, and you want to be effective through the strategies, for example, that Dr. Suresh had mentioned. But you have to do this living the principles of fraternity. This is your obligation. And if you can agitate with compassion, you will achieve good results.
Thank you. I think all the three discussants need a big hand. So we'll clap for all of them. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. Suraj was not well, but he's joined. That's why he was to be here, but he was running high temperature and things like that. He's recovering. And then Aakash has joined so early in the morning. Thank you, both of you. Thanks a lot. Yeah. So, and Smita, of course, managed to make it here. Now, when the constitutions were enacted on the 26th of January of 1950, it was just not a legal document, but a moral and a philosophical framework for the nation. So we have to all think of the constitution, as you own it. Each one of you owns it, and you must be very familiar with the contents, the preamble, of course, and then the fundamental rights, the directive principles of state policy, and the fundamental duties, which are basically foundational values of the Constitution. Okay, so now we'll ask the three judges to come, all three, because they will be giving the prizes. Okay, so we'll now, there's a lot of suspense. Who gets said? Come. So they'll also reason to you why they are giving it to who they have chosen. So, will you do the needful? Yeah. Rakesh, both of you. All of you. Give the reasons. Okay, come. Yeah. No, I think first you give a general picture, then comment. Let the suspense prevail for a few minutes.
No, I tell you, this fantastic discussion took place on the Constitution Day, and the questions asked by most of the students, I was really impressed. So profound questions, very thought-provoking, and I must admire the faculties of our youngsters, At your age, probably we were not at all anywhere near you when we were young. So, my God, very fundamental questions were profound questions, thought-provoking questions, questions which excited even our own imagination at this age. And then there's the depth and content of those questions are so fascinating. It actually brought out your deep appreciation of the historical dimension of Constitution and also the Constitution as a whole. So this is what my impression is, and it was a very difficult choice, to be very, very frank.
I think let them give the impressions.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, come.
I think, I highly appreciate each one of you who did the intervention, and also some of them may not, able to get a chance, but there is a thought provoking inside or within us, or each one of you must be thinking. I think what is when we celebrate on what we read anything, I think we need to critically think the ways in which you raise question to all of us, including Aakash and Suraj. And I think that each one of you, I can see that, the disturbance, the unrest which is going on in the mindset. And, it's each one of you must be, thinking, and everything was very thought provoking. So it was very, very difficult to really do, this thing. I would say that, you should take it forward this. And congratulations to each one of you.
Morning, friends. It's just coincidence that 3 of the judges are from JNU. We are all. So
we studied in different periods.
Different periods. So I'm just giving you the kind of premise on which some of our minds are also work on the institution that you come from. So institution also play a very important role. Schools. I have seen thousands of schools in terms of my own work, and believe me that you are a privileged lot. And not thousands of schools are not as privileged.
No, I think one thing I must share. He did a history on the school where Madan and I came from. The modern school. So Madan, Lokur, and I studied there. So he did a book on that. No, 100 years of that school.
So schools, apart from that, interior of the country, very interiors. So you're a very privileged lot. So the questions that you raised today are also come from a particular stand that you're located. Many of the hardships, you have no idea that the biggest education problem in the country, do you know any idea you have? What is the biggest educational problem of education in the country for the people suffer from?
Mike.
Sorry, I'm just taking a couple of more minutes. Shout. Huh?
No, they take that one. Cyber device. They take that.
So, the question that you have in your mind, the problem that you mind, the biggest problem in this country is class 6. Thousands of students don't get to class 6 because till 5 they are in the village. Class 6 in the neighboring villages, and they cannot go. Class 8, most of the women, almost 80% of the girl child drop out of class 8. They have absolutely no idea. Therefore, the question that you asked are very, very important questions in terms of how the system of governance in this country will work, how the constitutional morality will work. So you have therefore an added responsibility to make those class 6s in the countries, to make those class 8 in the countries. Most of the girl child drop out at the class if they want to have class science, for example, because the science labs are in the taluk cities or big towns or kasbah where they cannot travel. So therefore they drop out. So these are the large issues which through this constitution, you people, many of you will be journalists, judges, whatever role that you play. So therefore don't take a cynical view of life, be confident and make a brave, as somebody asked a question, they had the courage, why don't we have? No, we have the courage, we don't display that. So try and display that courage at moments of time. Thank you so much.
So I'll just announce, this is not the first, second, third. You don't,
No, but you just say what you have to say about just 1.5.
What?
Earlier, what you were saying, you wanted to speak about, and then answer that. Okay.
Okay. No. Just before announcing these names and the schools, I just wanted to say, for a minute, how B.R. Ambedkar became the chairman of the drafting committee of the Constituent Assembly. This is a very fascinating history. Jawaharlal Nehru and Sarojini Naidu, they were going to meet Mahatma Gandhi. And Nehru suggested Sarojini Naidu that to draft the Constitution of India, we would request Ivor Jennings, the constitutional expert of Britain, to come and draft it. Nehru's idea was that they should invite Ivor Jennings, a great constitutional expert. Gandhi overheard it. Gandhi overheard. He said, well, I could hear you talking about the invitation to be extended to Ivor Jennings to draft the Constitution. But why Ivor Jennings? We have our own people. And Nehru said, but who? He said, we have B.R. Ambedkar. Then Nehru said, well, Ambedkar is opposed to Congress. And Gandhi said, we are not drafting the Constitution for the Congress. You are drafting the Constitution for the country. So, this is narrated in a book by Viku Parekh. It's called Debating India. Debating India. It is mentioned. So look at Gandhi. Gandhi was bitterly criticized by Ambedkar throughout. He refused to accept him as Mahatma. He never issued a condolence message, even Gandhi's assassination. Ambedkar never issued a condolence message. But the bitter critic of Gandhi was chosen to draft the Constitution. So this is the beauty of India. Okay. So similarly, on 1st July 1947, because of the partition of India, Ambedkar was losing the membership of the Constituent Assembly, because apparently he was elected from Bengal and that part went to Pakistan and so on and so forth. So then it was decided, that because Gandhi suggested Ambedkar to become the chairman of the drafting committee, so how to get again elected, how to get Ambedkar again to the Constituent Assembly? So on 1st July 1947, Sardar Patel wrote a letter to Mavlankar. He said, Mr. Mavlankar, your services are not required in the Constituent Assembly now. You wait. Services of Ambedkar are required more than your services. So Ambedkar was elected to the Constituent Assembly after that, because on 29th August 1947, he became the chairman of the drafting committee. So this is the wonderful dimension of the Constituent Assembly. Somebody who was a critic of Congress, critic of Gandhi, critic of Nehru, he was asked to draft the Constitution. Okay, so I wanted to tell this history because this history is not well known, particularly at your age. I came to know much, much later. Okay, so, this is not first, second, third prize, anything, but, Manthan school, some Isi Datta or Ishani Datta? Aisni Gupta. So, your congratulations. Okay. Just wait, 1 minute. Then second, it's not second exactly. I'm just announcing, the second time. The two jointly. It's Cambridge School, Kushal Pandey. Yeah. For your particularly question how the women members of the Constituent Assembly perform their role and how inspiration should be taken from them. That is what you say. Brilliant, because I brought out a booklet when I was in Rajya Sabha Secretariat, selected speeches of women members of the Constituent Assembly. And then our joint winner is Mr. Ahmad from Dipalaya. Ahmad, yeah, that's a wonderful contract. Is it a contract among the citizens and the state, or how the contract is explained. So joint, Kushal and Dipalia, and then Ananya Dhawan or Bluebell Dhawan. Yeah. So that's how to cultivate constitutional morality. It's a very tough question. I think even we would like to know how to cultivate constitution. So it's a fantastic performance by every one of you. So congratulations to all of you, particularly, and the questions asked and then answers given. So thanks to Mrs. Suhas Borker for organizing this very educative program.
So we'll now just hand over the prizes. Now, I just wanted to, two things quickly I wanted to mention before we do that. And you must collect your, IIC, the kitchen has prepared some very good snacks for you. You must take the packets with you from the snack. In 2008, on this day, 2008, can anybody remember what happened? 2008? You don't? Yeah. Sorry? Yeah. There was attack, a series of 12 coordinated terrorist attacks, which took place from the 26th to the 29th. Now, I don't know whether they did it, as a kind of a strike against our constitution, but it was definitely a strike against our democracy. The second thing I want to mention is about a great son of India, Rabi Ray, who was born on the 26th of November 1926. So from today, we are in fact going into his centenary. Normally, the centenary year starts 1 year before. Does anybody know who Rabi Ray was? No? See, that's the problem we are having, amnesia. He was the Speaker of the Lok Sabha and a great socialist leader. And two things which he did, especially, which need to be mentioned. One is that was the first time a Supreme Court judge, Ramaswamy, was impeached.
No, he was not impeached.
Motion of impeachment was brought in. Now that had never happened. So there is accountability of the judiciary to Parliament and to the people of the country. I mean, that was one thing which he did, which was remarkable, because earlier a motion of impeachment had never been brought to Parliament. The second thing is he enforced the law of defection. This Ayaram, Gayaram keeps on taking place. You buy people, in fact, there's a thing which is going around that even if we lose the election, we will win, because they cause defections, So he stopped that during his tenure of speakership. The members of Parliament were disqualified. So we are remembering Rabi Ray today also for that. Now we will call the winners.
Just one.
Yeah.
Actually, one date which Suhas referred to, 2008. But actually, there is one date which is directly relevant to the Constitution. 13th December 2001. 13th December 2001, terrorists attacked Parliament. Parliament attack. 13th December 1946. 13th December 1946, the actual work of the Constituent Assembly began when Jawaharlal Nehru, Prime Minister, introduced the Objectives Resolution. So on the anniversary of the introduction of the Objectives Resolution in the Constituent Assembly, our Parliament was attacked.
Now, I don't know whether the terrorists designed it for that or whether they knew, but it happens, these coincidences happen. So, some of you attended that Public Service Broadcasting Day on the 12th of November. Now, later, after we had started, that was Gandhi's last broadcast on AIR. After we started commemorating that, we learned that on that day, Usha Mehta was arrested for the Radio Congress in Mumbai. So, you evolve. We are also evolving. And you have to evolve more to save this country. Somebody mentioned about hero worship. Now that's the biggest danger. Hero worship is the biggest danger to our democracy. Now that is very critical. Anyway, the prize winners, okay? Yeah, all the prize winners, please come. So can you just announce yeah, you have to give yeah, just stand there, all of you.
Yeah, who is
The first,
your name is Datta. What's her name? Your name?
No, where is that girl gone?
Aisni Gupta. Sorry. Aisni Gupta. Yeah.
Come.
Please come. Sir, please, you go ahead. Yeah. So you take a picture.
Yeah.
You hold it like that. Yeah. So you. Yeah, please. You must. Yeah. Okay, so then Vishal Pandey. Okay, so both of you hold it. We'll send one later on to one of you. Yeah.
Pale is close by, so it is easier to then later.
Then Dhawan. Okay, you're Dhawan. Come. It's a wonderful question.
Come, yes. Come, yes.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I thought something is missing.
Thank you.
You are in which class? 11. Okay.
So now that's all. And then we have to take one shot. Can you put it like a group? We'll all stand up. We take a group photo. Please collect your food packets.